Hey Leggari Nation, we're going to show you a beautiful white countertop look that you can get using our epoxy countertop kits. We used a white base and brown Leggari effects to get this look. These countertops mimic real stone and can be applied directly over your existing surface. There's no need to replace your countertops, just resurface them using Leggari. The Leggari effects are ready to go, there is no mixing required. The process is extremely simple. See the description below for more info on our countertop kits.
So if you guys run into some nail holes that maybe you missed or didn't fill, the easiest way to fill those is just take some spackle, fill those in with the putty knife, and then just flatten them off. Now typically you want to do this before primer, but hey, sometimes you miss spots. Now since we're not doing epoxy highlights, we're doing our Leggari effects in brown. Makes the counter kits real simple. So all I have to do is mix up my base coat, spread that out, and then I just drip out some Leggari effects, blend it, and then counters are done. So I'm just gonna kind of split these up. This will make it easier to pour out of. Alright guys, so now that we have all the resin kind of spread out on all the tops, what I'm going to do is just roll it out with a 3/8 snap roller. We've de-shedded it, and if I notice any thin spots, or if I have a spot that's maybe way too thick, I can just scoop that off the counter into a bucket and move that to another area that's maybe not as thick. now we have all the tops rolled out. Now I can focus on my faces and make sure we're getting all the way up to the tape edge, because again, guys, we taped high. So edges are simple. Faces, I'm gonna roll some, get some on that roller and just hit the face. Roll a little, do about a foot and a half on the face, hit the top again. Alright guys, so typically once you're done with your base coat, you would mix up your highlight epoxy, add your metallics. But now that we have our Leggari effects, that takes out that whole step. And you're gonna see how fast and easy it is to create a really cool design. And there's lots of different ways you can apply this stuff. Now we'll take 91% isopropyl and we're gonna just spritz the surface. All right, so I want to go over your faces, your edges. Now, don't assume just when you're done, your edges are going to look beautiful, right? A lot of times you'll get like some drips. Maybe it didn't level out as good. Maybe it looks like a run from the color. These look absolutely amazing, so I don't have to hit them. But what I want to do is scrape the bottom drips. And I'm just using a tongue depressor to scrape these bottom drips. Now, you can tell the resin is still really fluid, so it's going to keep dripping. So to make it to where I don't have to sand drips off every 15, 20 minutes, I want to come through and scrape those drips off to flatten them off. All right guys, so I'm going to show you how to add color. So we don't have much color on this edge. So what I'm gonna do is just get a little bit of this effects on the brush. It doesn't take much. And I'm just gonna kind of add some color throughout there. And then once that levels off, it'll just kind of look like a vein. And that's pretty much it. So the biggest thing is once you're done with your tops, make sure your edges, go back and check them periodically. Don't assume they're always gonna look good. You're not gonna have any missed spots, any runs, any surface tension. And the other thing, always look for divots or craters in the top, especially when you're doing isopropyl alcohol or dispersing effects. Sometimes it'll separate down to the primer. All you have to do is pat that in with your finger, and that's gonna eliminate that. It's gonna help it level back out. But if you don't address that, you'll come back the next day and they'll still be there. So don't assume those are all gonna level out. Don't assume your faces are gonna look good just like when you finished it. Always come back and check. And then last thing, do your drips. Make sure you scrape your drips so we don't have to sand those the next day. If you guys epoxy one day, you typically want to top coat the next day. If you wait longer than that, you really should sand the countertops with 220 grit or finer. Never sand it with a rough grit, especially if you're doing matte, because the matte won't hide as much of those scratches. So we always like to sand when we do 220 grit or finer. 220, 320 works great. So again, if you don't top coat within the next day, make sure you guys are sanding, scuffing those up. And then if you guys are sanding faces, corners, you gotta be really careful. I like to do those by hand or just go really, really slow, 320 grit, because you don't want to sand through.